So, back for another VGC guide, and this time we are looking at Florges. If you're not using the blue one, you're wrong. It's easily the best. So, yeah, people are defaulting to Sylveon. Understandably, Hyper Voice is amazing. With Pixelate, 'cause you hit both targets. But Florges has a couple of things that Sylveon does not. They both can Calm Mind, but Florges can recover. Synthesis is recovery. So you're able to actually have some longevity on the field rather than just having to resort to leftovers, which is probably the better item anyway on Florges as well. But Sylveon only gets recovery through leftovers. It doesn't get that recovery with 50% immediately. That's one big plus that Florges has over Sylveon. Another big plus, it's even more specially bulky than Sylveon is, so it's even more difficult to break through, which is noticeable. Like, even though Sylveon's special bulk is great, Florges is quite ridiculous. 154 is massive. So then you can just invest pretty much all into defenses, because all you need is Modest. Just not even the 4, but you might as well put the 4 there, because then that will Loco or Dragapult with Moonblast, so then you might as well just pump your defenses, so this just ends up being optimal. Depending on if you wanted any speed as well, but you probably don't need to, because you're supposed to just bulk yourself out and then just never die. And then inflicts huge damage with the +1 or 2 or whatever you're going for Calm Minds with the Moonblast. The Terra typing I think should be Water, because Chilling Water actually combos quite well with the Calm Minds, because then this boosts your special defense, this helps decrease the amount of damage you're taking on the physical side as well, is also coverage to hit steals, so then you're resisting steal as well, while also getting stab on top of the Chilling Water. So that seems pretty reasonable in my head. So if you didn't want to go with that, then you can just go with Fire-type Terra Blast instead. Both are entirely reasonable, but this one helps you survive for longer. This one does more damage and has slightly better coverage against things that you wouldn't want to hit with Fairy. And it's just stronger because base 80 against base 50. So basically just pick your favourite, depending on whether your team needs fire or water, or if it doesn't really matter, then just choose whether you want damage or whether you want damage reduction as well. But both are entirely reasonable. If you did not want to go with that, you can just go with the immediate damage output of choice specs. That is pretty reasonable, given that 112 is a very, very good special attack stat. So you're going to be able to do some significant damage immediately with your Choice Specs Moonblasts. You'll be so bulky on the special side that you'll be able to shrug off those hits and get some really powerful attacks off as well. And then the defensive side, you're not going to be as defensive because you want actual damage output as well from the Choice Specs. This survives, I believe it was a Life Orb, might have been Choice Banded actually, Earthquake that's Ground Terrored. It would have been Choice Band, Ground Terrored, Earthquake from Garchomp, so that you could take that and respond back with the Moonblast. So that's not too bad at all. Like, on the defensive side being 68, that's pretty good, while still having a lot of damage output as well. I would still recommend the Flower Veil over Symbiosis, generally, because helping protect your grass types from any of the statuses and stat lowering is going to be very good as well. If you are not paired with a grass type, you also still need to think twice if you wanted to go Symbiosis. If you had Symbiosis, one of your partners used up an item and then Choice Specs was given over to a physical attacker, that's not very good. So you just need to be careful with the abilities. The Flower Veil might not come into play at all if you don't have any grass types, but Symbiosis might be detrimental. It may not be on the support set, so I think it's entirely reasonable to have Symbiosis on the support when you've got something like a Citrus Berry, but you can still have Flower Veil if you are going to have the grass types. So if you don't have grass types, then Symbiosis is absolutely fine for this, because these are pretty reasonable support moves as well. You get to recover yourself still with the Synthesis. You get to recover your partner with Pollen Puff, and you get to increase the damage output of your partner with Helping Hand. You get to protect your grass types with from any of the status lowering and all that stuff as well. So this seems pretty reasonable as well. Defense Terra typing of the fire type there. You don't really care about the damage output, so you don't need to go in Fairy or anything. But yeah, this is perfectly reasonable support as well, so you can Calm Mind up and get some really good damage going. You can get some immediate damage going with the Choice Specs. Like, it's been previously, I'm going to say the dreaded Pokemon here, but it is the Pokemon that makes sense to compare it to. Tapu Fini has run Calm Mind in the past, or Choice Specs. Like, you basically chose one of the two. It's exactly the same with Florges here, except Florges is obviously better. And then you can go pure support as well, with basically like, what is it? I was going to say Cleric, that's like D&D related, but Pollen Puff and Synthesis, being able to heal yourself and your party is, well, again, that was D&D talk saying party. Heal your partner that it's next to is going to be pretty good as well. So Florges has, I think, some very good viability. It's got to contend with Sylveon, but it does some things better than Sylveon does. Does that make it worthwhile over it? Because the main thing of Sylveon is that you get the spread damage in the Hyper Voice. There's a couple of other things, like Quick Attack and all that. But is the spreads really worth sacrificing all that bulk and recovery? That's up for you to decide.